Hello and welcome to the Animation Kimmunication podcast, your source for discussion about animation, film, fandom, and more. So please join your host, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, or KP, and Lauren Kizich, the Abbey Roadie, for today's discussion. If you like what you hear, please remember to support by giving a like, a follow, as well as subscribing to the main I Love Kim Possible a Lot channel on YouTube. Spread the word and keep being a part of a great community. This episode is appropriate for all ages.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Animation Kimmunication. If you've been keeping up with the feed, this is our first one in a little bit. By a little bit, probably like a couple weeks. Oh, you're so deprived. Anyway,
like
so
I don't have a backlog of content to go to in the meantime, but
some people listen to the whole thing. I post my 2 cons on this recording, I guess, and I had a whole 3 people come up and tell me they like the podcast, so they might be listening to every week. I don't know. There's people out there, Lauren. There's at least 3 of them.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, we wouldn't be here if there was nobody listening to us. Well, then again, we may be rambling to ourselves because we are great conversationalists to each other. So there's that.
Lauren's not real. She's just a voice in my head.
But yeah, I'm excited for our show today because we have 2 very special guests that will be talking about a short film that they made, an independent animated short film. And but before we do get to that, we will do our What's the Sitch news update. And I guess we've got a couple headlines here. I might as well just lead right into them. But our first one is The Ghost and Molly Mcgee, Disney's upcoming show. It should be starting in October. It's an animated musical show about a girl who moves into a new home, and there's a ghost that lives at the house. And basically because, I guess more or less because he curses her to be haunted by him for the rest of her life or something like that, that basically she's like, now I have a new friend. Because she's not fazed by ghosts. So it's basically their adventures together. And they just got greenlit for season 2, already ahead of their season 1 premiere. And basically I figured that was going to be the case because, not going to lie, I have been seeing positions posted for Ghost and Molly Mcgee for different storyboard sequences. So I figured that was going to be the case when the news dropped, but that's good news. I'm very excited about the show. What about you, KP?
I like spooky things, so I guess we'll see. I don't know, I hope it's not just like a stupid, Casper thing where they're just like, oh, they're friends and they're never going to address, the fact that he's a ghost. So I'm like, how'd he die, ghost? I want some creepy backstory. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, you've seen some of the footage of it before, right?
Yeah, I've seen footage of it.
Okay, because they'll most likely go into that kind of stuff, but they want to make sure that they establish the vibe of the show first, which, as we have seen with a number of Disney shows, it's funny that it'll often start with something happy or lighthearted, and then as people are now used to that, they start going into the heavier themes and tones. With this one, I'm not sure. We'll see where they go with it. I'm sure, given that there's a ghost involved, they will have to address something about death, but
I want my spooky things.
And so, but we'll see with season 1, given that they gave the green light to season 2 already. It looks like there's a lot of confidence in the show being a success, which I'm banking on it too, because I've been very, very excited about it for a very long time. Especially being, somebody who loves musicals a whole lot. And, so yeah.
All right. I did the math in my head. I'm like, oh, it's a ghost musical. Oh, I get it.
What do you mean it's a ghost musical?
It's some ghost musical. It's like Lauren's one of 3 favorite things.
Oh, well, there's Beetlejuice, yeah, sure, but that makes 2 ghost musicals.
I know, but it's how many ghost musical genres are there,
But anyway, and I will say for the second headline, because this was definitely within, at least as of recording this, within the past 24 hours, maybe even 48 hours, is that footage has dropped teasing the season 5 finale of Rick and Morty. That has, nobody knows if it has anything to do with an episode or if it's just to promote the season, but they have been doing live action clips to promote Rick and Morty, and it's basically showing a live action Rick and a live action Morty, with Rick being played by Christopher Lloyd, yes, the
legend,
the guy who played Doc Brown, who was the original inspiration for Rick, and then we have Jaden Martell, who, if you have watched the It series, the new It series from like 2017 and 2019, 2020, something like that. Basically the new series. He is in there, and he is portraying Morty in the live action segments with him. So, and it's funny because, yeah, again, Rick and Morty started out as more or less a parody of Doc and Marty from Back to the Future. So it's kind of funny that we see Christopher Lloyd coming in as Rick. And so they've been doing a few segments. I think they may be dropping a few more. We'll see. Again, we don't know. Nobody knows
I have a guess.
Nobody knows when it's going to happen, if it's even part of an episode or if it was just a big promo thing that they're doing, which I'll admit that's a dang good way to promote it because suddenly everybody's going to be talking about it, right? So, yeah, I'm intrigued to see where they're going with this.
Yeah, my guess is they've already been, slight spoilers, but they've already been implying that the Rick that is in the main show Rick is not the correct Rick in his C-137 dimension or whatever. So I think what they're going for is that Doc Brown Rick is the correct Rick, and that cartoon Rick somehow exported him or something like that. And as you guys know, because I did a video called The Worst Episode of Rick and Morty, I am a big fan of Rick and Morty. And season 5 in general has been very hit or miss. The misses are very like, why did we spend money writing this? Why did we do this? Like the stupid, I won't curse because this is a nice episode, but the stupid episode where Rick or Morty and Summer make a space incest baby, and I'm just like, did we need this? Like, even if it was a setup for another, like, at least they called back to that thing, but, like, did we need to make this? And, like, the behind-the-scenes clip of them talking about it was just like, well, we wanted to make underground horses or something, and I'm just like, no, Rick and Morty, like, I don't care if you're tired of making this show. You guys are getting paid so much to make the show. Like, can you make sure you only have 10 episodes per season? Can you make sure all 10 episodes are good? Thank you. So, we have episodes like that, but the good episodes are really good. Like the Planetini episode is fantastic. The Birdman episode, which was the episode before this, so that's kind of setting up the season finale, was great and fantastic, and I love Rick, but having a vulnerable Rick is even better because character development Rick is even better, so I'm curious to see how the season finale ties into this, but essentially Adult Swim has also been very good as far as, you know, they dropped the whole episode of the first episode of the season. Sorry, I had to think about it. The first episode of the season just straight on YouTube, and which was great promotion. So, you know, Rick and Morty still got a while to go, so I'm hoping they try to be smart to make it fresh, but from what they are going with, if they do like a Christopher Lloyd thing, I think that will be really great, and maybe we'll get some more canon backstory on top of Birdman canon backstory, because Birdman episode was great. So I'll come back and I'll be like, I called it, or I don't call it, so we'll see what happens. And then my other stupid news story is, in case you guys care about Kim Possible a lot, Boxed Lunch has launched a exclusive Loungefly collection of, there's a Kim Possible Loungefly purse, that's like one of the travel bag purse and wallet. So that is the first piece of, besides t-shirts, I guess t-shirts don't count. That's the first piece of, original Kim Possible merch, in a very long time, physical merch. So, I bought it, like, instinctively. So it's, got Rufus and it's got Bueno Nacho on it. I'm just like, yay, it's like the one thing I like. So as we continue on, I'm writing a video about, the live action, it prefaces the live action Disney stuff, but like, as we're continuing on into the realm of things of Disney seeing how things have aged well, then I have a feeling they might try to do some Kim Possible something again once people forget about the live action movie, and we'll hopefully have a continuation with my amazing idea of having Jackie in college and fun times ensue, so call me Disney. It's like the next 10 years in Disneydom and just entertainment in general should be interesting. And then obviously with the new horse thing, we got new horse things. So.
That comes at the end of the month for yes, the next gen of My Little Pony for so I'm excited to see where they go with this, especially with it being in that same universe. So and of course it looks really good too. Like that is some nicely rendered animation, and I like the character models. It'll be interesting to see where the story goes and how this film launches G5.
And I think, like I said, I think it was really smart for them to do a same universe and not just isolate people that grew up with the show. And it'll probably be out by the time this episode gets released. But we're doing probably the last pony video, unless I want to talk about G5. I am not forcing myself to talk about the G5 movie, but if I want to, I will. So, it'll probably be the last, pony video if I don't talk about it for a hot sec, because I just did one. I mean, the Morty toy video I'm counting as one, even though it's not really one. So yeah, I guess, we'll see what happens, but my joke being like, the implication of having everything in the same universe, it's like, all your favorite characters, like Rarity and Twilight Sparkle, they're all dead. So, I'm curious to see if they're like in some time bubble or something, whatever, so they're not actually all dead, because, that's kind of a depressing afterthought of like, oh, I guess they're all dead. It's fine. So, depressing horse things. So, and I imagine Discord will probably show up eventually because he's immortal. So, they got nothing to lose there. So. Not like John's doing really anything. Oh yeah, he's doing Picard. But that's probably over by now. So.
But yeah, so basically we can pretty much segue into.
Yeah, that was a lot. Sorry,
no, it's okay. We can basically segue right into our discussion now. So this is the short film Let's Eat, and I'm not going to give any spoilers here for the film, and we're not going to go into any spoilers for it. But what I will say is it's very good, and I'm very excited to have the producer and the director on for the film today, and at KPS, as I'm sure you are too. So, yeah, let's get right to it.
All right, so Lauren found our talent this week through a contact that she met, or she has, from back in her high school days. So Lauren, I'll let you go ahead and talk about who you had, and a little bit about your understanding of the project, and then we'll throw it to the people who actually did the project, and a little bit of, that's what the podcast is for. Sorry, this is awkward. Go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah, it's okay. So, I was able to find out about this project through my old high school friend, Rachel. Not this Rachel, the other Rachel. The Rachel I've known for almost 15 years. We met way back freshman year in high school. She currently works with Wild Canary, which is a animation studio, and she's also been simultaneously working on a short film that's been that actually made some amazing rounds in the film festival circuit over the past year. And I had the chance to screen it recently, and I'm not going to go into spoiler territory here, but it's very, very, very good. and so I wanted to be able to have. We both talked about it when we were thinking we wanted to promote the short film on the podcast, because it will be making its online debut very, very soon for the public to see. So that means all of you guys at home get to watch it.
Yeah, as well as, I was just going to throw in, I don't think we've really had an episode. We've done a lot of, episodes about, everything from producing stuff online to, that's kind of the general expertise of this kind of podcast, but to producing more independent stuff. But I don't think we've done, a film festival, rounds, how does even that work kind of thing. So I think this is relatively new territory for us. So hopefully it should be...
We're always open to new things.
Hopefully you should learn a new thing, people who are listening. I keep on saying watching, but I know they're not watching.
They're watching on the YouTube visualizer. That's what they're
doing. They can watch the YouTube loop of us doing whatever, but that doesn't really count.
So anyway, we do have a couple guests. We have the short film is called Let's Eat, And we have the director and the producer on with us today. So we have Dixon and we have Amy. Dixon, why don't you lead the way and introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Amy as well.
Hi, yeah. So I'm Dixon, directed the film, and it's a film that I guess we started kind of thinking about 4 years ago and fast forward to now, we finished about a year ago, but it was quite a journey. And I'll pass it over to Amy.
Yeah, it was definitely a journey. I'm Amy, and I'm the producer of Let's Eat. And it was a journey. It was a blast, and it was a journey. There was so much happened in the past 4 to 5 years.
Before we go into the more questions, for people who don't know those terms, can you guys just generally define director and producer as far as maybe even your job specifically on a short film versus maybe like a more traditional feature film, as far as those I mean, they're similar roles, but maybe, kind of the difference in tone and, scope of finding talent, all that stuff.
Yeah. I think if we did a big picture of what director and producer does, I think the director is in charge of like the creative vision of the film, and the producer does the business side and actually makes the film happen. I think Dixon can probably speak more to the director, but for the producer, in that sense, that could be in the capacity of, finding the right talent, finding funds for the film or the production, finding like the technology for it, making sure, like, talking to the director and making their vision come true, and or telling them like, no, you can't do that. We don't have the funds for it. So I think they do a lot of things, and for a bigger studio, it could involve actually talking to studios or, talking to sponsors such as Netflix or Disney, and then indie films, it's Kickstarter or, other means to making it happen. So, yeah. Dixon, did you want to elaborate on director?
Yeah, sure. So I guess the way I look at it is director and producer is like one brain, but just different parts of it. So I guess as a director, director's responsible for the creative vision, and also kind of leads the team in terms of like how to get there. So I was leading the team in texturing or animation. Basically, every department, I would give notes on how, this eye is like too wide open, or like this chair is too like brown or something like that. So just
How dare
every
that chair be
detail
down.
kind of goes through. Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty. I mean, that's a big picture of what a director does.
Great. So I'm really glad we were all able to be able to pull together to talk about this film. And again, we're gonna try and be spoiler free with this again, because depending on when the episode drops and when you guys release the film, we want to make sure that everybody goes in really fresh. So I guess though what we want to do is go over into the first question, which would be how did you come up with the story for Let's Eat? Was it inspired by family, friends? What inspired that?
Sure, I can answer this. Actually, it started out with so Amy and I actually made a short film called J9000, and we went to a convention and showed it off to Tonko House. And Robert and Dice saw that short, and they were like, "Oh, this is really good. You guys should make another one." So,
very kindly, I don't know. I don't think it was. They definitely challenged us. They were like, "Oh, this is like pretty good for only studying animation for a year, but you can do better."
yeah.
And they're like, I think the wording was like, it would be a disservice if you did anything less.
Yeah, they were saying like, if we see your next film, like, we have really high expectations, so you guys better not disappoint us. So
yeah, it was like so brutal.
It was very encouraging. I felt it was encouraging, and then
yeah, I was intimidated, but then I was just like, okay, yeah, we could do this.
So I asked Amy, I was like, hey, do you want to do another one? Because we just finished that short, and then she said yes, and then you were thinking of some ideas, right, Amy? What was your idea that you were thinking of?
I was thinking, because it was like me, Dixon, and then we had a member named Andy, and I was thinking of things of what do we like as a group of 3 people, and I was like, food. Oh yeah, we love eating, right? So then I talked to Dixon about like, what if we did something about food, or I don't know, some like really sad story of like a child starving or something, or I don't know. And then I think Dixon took away and he thought about like, what did food mean to him? And I don't want to see your thunder, Dixon. Like, you should explain this.
Well, yeah, I mean, she was mentioning how like her mom would make her like salmon in the morning for breakfast, and then it would kind of.
I was really spoiled.
Every time she ate it, it would give her like a euphoria, right? So I was like, I just want to capture that somehow. And I was thinking about like how, family, food, and parents, and I got really inspired, and I started to just write a treatment of this story that I wanted to tell. And then I guess like a couple weeks later, I went back to Amy and said, hey, I got a story, I want to pitch it to you. It was in her kitchen, and I pitched her the story, and I believe she liked it. And she's like,
I cried.
she
cried. I cried, yeah.
And then she was like, we got to make this. And that was the beginning. So it started out with the 3 of us, and then started storyboarding, working on the animatic, and then Amy, do you want to talk about Nimble or that part?
Well, I mean, I think Lauren and KP.
You got it.
We get carried away a lot, so like I think that's kind of how we came up with the story of Let's Eat. The ball really got rolling, and we were in over our heads.
Oh yeah, I was just going to ask, like, as far as you mentioned, an animation convention. So like Lauren and I will do more traditional like comic conventions. So like that's kind of where my brain is as far as like people like more nerd IP centric things. So I guess you've kind of brushed upon like Lightbox and all those things, all the like animation specific conventions. But if you could talk about like how the first short film happened, like submitting it to that first convention, maybe a little bit about how you guys met. I am assuming that you guys met in school, but, correct me if I'm wrong. So if you can kind of light a little bit about that, I am curious.
Wow, you made it so formal of like how we submitted or like the J9000. It's like a 40-second short film, but honestly, we made it in 3 months. We finished rendering it. I think I was sleeping and Dixon and Andy was like staying up to 5 in the morning, and then 1 hour later we drove down to LA.
That's the true animator story.
And then we put it on like our iPad or something, or like and then we just walked around the Creative Talent Network convention.
Oh, okay,
CTN.
yeah, CTN.
Yeah, yeah.
So you walked around. So you walked around the hotel by the Bob Hope
We
Airport.
walked around the hotel.
Yep.
We like walked the floor. Like when we were in line getting our tickets, we would like show the people next to us, what they thought or whatever. Like it was very informal. We just showed it to anyone
that was willing to see us. Yeah.
And then we just got really fortunate with Dice and Robert at Tonka House because they were I think they just randomly posted on Facebook being like, this time to this time Dice and Robert will see these people who first comment on this post, and I was literally the first one because I got a Facebook notification and I was like, yes,
okay,
need to do this.
Why you got to turn on your notifications, guys, for everything.
Yeah,
you never
on Facebook,
know.
on Instagram, you never know. Yeah, and then that's how we got to show them. So
This is kind of crazy. About 3 years later, Taco House hired Amy, so she worked there for.
Yes, yeah, I got to work for Dice and Robert, and it was surreal because I told them, and then they just like nicely nodded because I don't think they remembered us. But it was all good, yeah, because they were really impressed by the short film that they inspired, so it was good. It was fine.
Okay, yeah, I was just like, I'm thinking about we've been sitting on this short for a while that we were going to start boarding, but then COVID happened. So I'm like, we're going to make this thing for film festivals when the film festivals aren't happening. So I'm going to kind of also like use the podcast to pick your brains as far as like, how do you submit things? How do you get the pretty awards that you can put on the thumbnail of the video? They look so fancy. So those kind of questions.
Yeah. I feel like going through the process of film festivals, now I'm just like, it's all an illusion. It's like not as fancy as you would think, but it's, I'll answer all your questions, even Rachel Yelenick can answer your questions, because I feel like she, did most of it.
She did most of it.
The teammates.
She did it.
Yeah,
she did it while,
a lot
like,
of it.
like juggling 3 jobs, I think, too. It was like,
Less.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, she's a force. Yeah, she's a force to be reckoned with.
yeah, she's always like been incredibly organized and efficient. That's as long as I've known her. So I mean, I admire her so much.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, and now that it got to, you got to step 1, you got to be like, okay, now you got your story for Let's Eat. How did you meet and assemble the rest of your production team? Like, I got to briefly meet with Beverly and Rachel, along with you, Dixon, before this. So why don't you touch a little bit on your team?
Should I tackle this, Dixon?
Yeah, that's all you.
I can give. Yeah, producer, bringing people together, right? that's our
Friendship
job.
is magic. There you go.
Yeah, Dixon tells me always, or he has to remind me that I'm the glue of the team, and I think I humbly agree, even though I don't like to admit it because I don't know how to take a compliment. So, but for Let's Eat, oh wow. So, I think to just give a disclaimer, we had no idea what we were doing. And so I thought that we would finish Let's Eat with 5 people and 6 months.
That sounds
yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, you could probably do it, but you might die.
But it just wasn't possible because we were like, oh, and also it's going to be volunteer. And so, I think, in not knowing animation too, as we were continuing our journey of creating Let's Eat, we just learned one thing after another of like, oh, we need people to do layout, we need people to do set dressing, we need actually a lot of animators. We need these people called lighters, we need people to build a pipeline. And so I think the team in the span of 3.5 years grew from 3 people to 152.
Oh wow, that's a lot.
Wow.
It was a lot, yeah, and it was that size because it was volunteer.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
like an animator can I think our biggest team was animators. We had 36 people. I think 33 animators and then 3 production management to manage those people. And so, but in terms of how our team grew is learning what we actually needed to create an animated film and then finding them. And we kind of found them through all kinds of means. So there was Facebook, we had our more social friends post on their Facebook of hey, do you do animation? Do you want to join? Or talk to these people. And then I think, we also went to CTN and we put pamphlets down of reach out to us for these types of positions. Mm-hmm. I believe that's how we actually met Rachel. Or I'm so sorry, Rachel, if I get this wrong. So, and then we also met word of mouth. And so I think the way that we ran our team and a lot of our teammates really liked it, and so I think they just recommended to their friends, being hey, you should join this team, or talk to them to see if they have a position for you. We also went to schools and stuff as well.
I just want to add to, I think we had really nice artwork too that kind of attracted people to our film as well. So we had a nice website.
Yeah, we had a really good website, and I think that really helped too. And we also used Artella, which I don't think exists anymore.
Oh yeah.
Or it turned into a different product.
Right.
I don't know if you know what Artella is.
I do not.
Oh wow, it's been that long.
It's like oh, Amy, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go for it, Dixon.
I think it was kind of like a Facebook for animators, like in terms of getting together. Oh, I need an animator, or I need a lighter, and then they post something, and then you can.
Oh, that would have been nice to know about.
I'm like
forever ago.
Yeah.
Nobody told me about that either.
It was really cool. I mean, it was around for a while. I'm not sure why they shut down. I'm not quite sure.
I think it's because they were trying to be like Nimble Collective.
Oh,
because
too much,
like
right?
so
Yeah.
Artella like had like a social like media, not like a social aspect to it, where like you could create a profile and then people can find you, or you could search for projects like to work on, and for each project they would like put up a position saying like we're looking for lighters or animators or blah blah blah, and people would just apply. But then you could also, I think the perk of it was like you could actually store your project on Artella, so like your files and like your Maya files or whatever. So it was almost like a Dropbox as well that was associated with each project.
Nice.
But then I think they shut it down because I think they got enough investors who I guess weren't interested in the social part of it. So I don't know what happened to Artella. It disappeared.
But we definitely used it to gain some of our teammates. We had a handful from Artella. So I think the lesson is like Amy pretty much like was reaching out in every aspect or any avenue, and it worked.
Yeah, we found there was one of the animators was through Artella. She found our project and she was a lead animator on the Dragon Prince.
Oh wow!
And she volunteered for us, and I was just like, "Are you sure?" And
Are
then
you
she was
sure?
Like, yeah, and then I was just like, "Yeah," and I was just like mind blown. I was just like, "Okay, Jody, you're so cool."
Actually, there's a few really like professionals that worked on our film as volunteers just for the sake of it. It was really cool. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, I was just curious because one of the things that we always have problems with, not like, is finding people that want to work for free or want to work for volunteer. And there's you guys probably know this already, but for the viewers out there, whatever, the listeners, whatever,
Audience.
you have to kind of like, there's kind of that big stigma about like, don't work for volunteer, you're gonna get taken advantage of, yada 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 yada. And I think that's kind of a misdirect, as long as you know the project, you trust the people, they have the project organized, and you know like what you want to specifically get out of it, or if you're just professional, you just kind of want to network or whatever. I think, a lot of times, I've probably said this before, but a lot of times, those nonprofit projects, really give people that maybe don't have access to art school or don't have access to tools to get better, kind of a chance to practice in a way that they'll get positive, criticism and things like that. So,
Right.
I think it's a very case-by-case basis. But yeah, go ahead. I heard someone say something.
No, I was agreeing with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, totally agree that there's this like really strong stigma where it's like no matter what, don't volunteer. But like, I think that's really strong, and because like I think like since we're doing art, right? Art is something where we do because we're humans. We express, we want to tell stories and things like that. And animation is just one of those art mediums where you probably can't do it by yourself. Unless you have like 20 years of experience and things like that. But even then, like people specialize in certain departments, and like it takes a team to do an animation. And so I think when it comes to like, your personal project, you probably would want to collaborate with other people. Mm-hmm. But like, would you pay yourself for other people to do a personal project, or when you're exploring? Like, no. So like, I think when it comes to volunteering, like the rules that I follow, I think it's like 4 rules, which is like 1, it has to be a project I believe in. 2, it has to be people that I like working with. 3, it has to be something that I like doing. And 4, it has to be something I have to be learning something. And if it meets those 4 criterias, great, like sign me up, volunteer, let's do this. And if one of those things are not being met, like, yeah, pay me, because I'm not gonna work with people I don't like, or like I don't want to work on a project that I don't believe in, right? So yeah, those 4 things. And I feel like you can find that actually pretty often, especially if you work with people who are like-minded as you.
Yeah. And as long as you like put that, you know, you're not trying to trick people or anything, or you put that out there, it's like, hey, like this is volunteer, you know, but if that's okay with you, then XYZ kind of thing. So I think there's also kind of a stigma and like the whole like, oh yeah, this will be great, and people don't, you know, it might be implied, but people don't outright say, oh, this is volunteer, and then they're like, oh, I assumed I'd get money. Where'd the money go? And you know, so.
Oh yeah,
Communication
had
is
to be
magic.
very clear about that. Yeah, I think when Dixon and I interviewed people to join Let's Eat, I think we would spend like an hour in the beginning with every person, just like talking to them, like getting to know them, and also setting expectations. Like, I think as a team culture, what really worked for us was that we were looking out for our volunteers. So you would ask them like, what would they want to achieve? What was their dream job? How could we get them to their dream job? And as well as like, you know, making sure we could add to their portfolio and stuff like that. So I think caring about your teammates like really helps with the volunteer work, and also setting that expectation. I had another thought, but I just lost it. So, but maybe Dixon, you could elaborate on that.
Well, yeah, I want to say too, just joining a short film in general, especially if you don't have experience, is a great way to gain a lot of experience. Not only the doing the work itself, but being able to work as a team. You know, so I think if you're kind of coming out of school and you don't have experience, I think volunteering for a short film is a great way. I mean, for us, Amy and I, we didn't have any experience, so that's why we did this short film to begin with, and now we have so much more experience afterwards. So. I think it's totally worth it.
Now you're on podcast talking about your experience that you have now.
Yeah. Exactly. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and, you know, in discussing, you know, with your team members and finding your team members, and when you finally had your team, I know this was like, again, this was a new venture for everyone involved, that you, like you said, like we didn't really know what we were doing, so we're just trying to find our way through it. What were some of the hurdles you faced in the different stages of production?
Oh my god, so many.
I had a feeling that might be the response.
I feel like there was at least 20, if not more, but like, you know, but I think there were like definitely like 3 or 4 major events for sure. Like, I think one of the first ones was like when we were talking about budget to our team. I think Dixon and I were handling it pretty casually. I think the way that we delivered our message to the team, they were very hurt by it. And like we had to like, you know, talk to our team and make sure we were all on the same page when it was talking to budget and making sure that like, you know, they weren't underappreciated. Mm-hmm. I think the way that we were like handling our money. Or Dixon, do you remember that when that happened?
Sure, yeah. So early on, we knew that we had to bring on contractors for things that you know, we couldn't do, like rigging or building a pipeline. So we wanted to be transparent with the team. So early on, we made a video saying, by the way, there will be some members on the team that will be paid, but we just want to be upfront and make sure they like kind of knew what was happening. And then I think a few days later got wind that some members were kind of upset. So then we kind of reached out to them and kind of talked to them. I wanted to hear what they had to say. Long story short, they kind of understood why we had to do this, and you know, everything worked out. Like some of the members turned out to be our most like competent and team leaders after all. But it's just that was a tough one that Amy and I struggled a lot with. We didn't want any bad feelings, even though we thought we were being transparent. It still kind of hurt the team, and I felt bad about that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one of the things that's kind of hard in general is when you're kind of when you're making kind of quote unquote the hard decisions, is that artists, a lot of the time, not all of them, but a lot of them are introverted. So sometimes they might not tell you they feel X way, like directly, or they might just kind of, you know, be shy about saying what the problem is and stuff like that. And then you have to, like, a problem with me is I confess to Lauren too, it's just like, now I'm afraid everyone's always saying something bad, or something like that, because if there's problems sometimes, I feel like if artists are introverted and they're afraid to kind of speak up, and they, you know, there might be problems that kind of come out that might not get addressed. So I imagine that was not a big hurdle, but that might have been a factor with what you guys were dealing with as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, people not like speaking up about their minds. I think a lot of them weren't going to until Dixon reached out to them, and then like, you know, he would have like 1 to 3 hour conversations with them. But by the end of it, because Dixon is such a great people person, like, you know, I think the team was stronger for it. So yeah, for sure, that was like one of the struggles. And then like another struggle was like our pipeline disappearing, and like or like, you know, some unruly team members, or what was the other struggle, Dixon?
Well, those are the main big ones, I think.
So what happened with the pipeline, if I could ask?
Oh,
sure.
Do you want to go for it, Dixon?
Sure. A long story, but I'll make it short. So we were working with a company that kind of hosted our pipeline, our servers, and had a render solution. And it basically got bought out, and so all the servers had to shut down. So in the middle of our production, we had all to stop. Like, we couldn't render, we couldn't work on anything. But the company did say, hey, but you can use our services. You just have to build it from scratch again. So then, so I spent like, you know, the next 4 months with a very small group of technical people from our team rebuilding our pipeline again, and I don't even know how to do computer stuff, so I had to learn how to use Linux and how to build a render farm from scratch. It was kind of crazy.
Oh, wow, yeah.
4 months later, we were able to render our first image, and that was the greatest day of my life. So
the day where everyone
so
clinked
wild.
glasses.
Yeah. It was so wild, because like we were so happy for like the company we were working with, because they were like, you know, our mentors and like really good friends. But then also like they're like, hey, in 2 days, like you won't have access to your data anymore, but we're going to keep it safe for you until we can put it into a format where you can access it again. So we're like, oh my gosh, like we have 48 hours to download as much data as possible. And so like I had to we like met up with some people, and then like a few people, you know, because we couldn't really tell anyone, and then we had to strategically decide which data we were going to download, because there was a lot of data, because at this point we were in layout and animation, and so we were like, okay, what do the animators exactly need to animate? Do they need the sets? No, they just need the characters to animate, and then we can like put it into the sets later on. And then, you know, the layout artists, like they can't do much because they need the whole pipeline in order to do their work, because it's a lot of like referencing and things like that. And then we were like, oh, okay, we can download things from the modelers and textures for these specific files, because these are the things that need to be done now for the next like 3 months. And so that was a pretty crazy 2 days of just like hustling really hard to make sure that our team could still keep going. And thankfully there wasn't too much of a hitch where like no one was just sitting on their hands. They were still working along and chugging along. But yeah, I think that definitely did like push back our production by like 3 months.
Yeah,
because we had to build that rendering farm and stuff like that.
That just feels painful hearing it. I can't imagine being in it.
It was wild. Yeah, this project has put us through everything. So
I mean, actually, we didn't even know if we would finish. Like, that was the one blow that I was like, I don't think we can finish. But we just had to keep going.
Oh yeah.
You know, it just what else?
Like,
what else
like
do we do?
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah, that you say that, I was like, my life flashed before my eyes, and I was just like, we're not gonna finish.
Yes, it's like 2 years of work, and then gonna, you know, out the window. It was kind of crazy, scary.
Yeah, that was wild. But then we made it. So
we made it through.
Here we are.
It's like, we primarily deal with 2D stuff, so like that's the nice thing about 2D is like none of the the post stuff is usually incredibly complicated, where we need like really high power CPU and stuff like that. We can just be like, I'll just put it in After Effects and that kind of thing. So doing
That must be so nice.
it's a blessing and a curse in some ways, but then you have to then you still if you're doing frame by frame, then it's being on model and all that stuff is like its own set of problems.
Brutal.
Yeah, so
pros and cons for each
Yeah.
one. Yeah, like 3D, I think, though, it's probably just more expensive, though, I think. I don't know. I feel like they're both expensive in their own different ways.
Yeah, it just depends, I guess, what people are expecting and what people want to work with, so,
Right.
All I could think of is those times when I was in college and there would be there were, I guess, a certain season where sometimes power outages would just happen. And so we had it as our ritualistic thing. We had it, one of our animation majors would come through every 5 minutes and would say saving reminder. So everybody would save their projects in the event of anything going wrong. And there have been times I remember when there was a time I literally, because I went to LMU to study animation. And so the animators were all on the 3rd floor of the film building, right? At the time. Now there's this whole new facility that they've added onto that. I still have to go see that. But I remember I was heading towards the elevator and I was about to hit the button to go down. And all of a sudden, as my hand's an inch away from the button, the power went out. Oh, and I hear just the resounding no.
Wow.
just the resounding shrieks of no.
It's like a horror movie.
And especially on top of that, with it just the lights going out and everybody screaming that they hadn't saved their work.
No.
Or they had stuff that was going to a render farm and it couldn't render. It was like
I feel their pain from here.
And I swear I could hear one weak little saving reminder. It was but to think it was not only an instance where everybody was panicking over lost stuff or were worried that they had or their backup hadn't saved or whatever. And then there was also the people that were just about to get onto an elevator that if they had gotten on, the power would have been out and they would have been stuck in an elevator too. So just imagine.
Yeah. That happened to me once. It's not fun.
But yeah, it was So that's why I feel that when everything can be lost in that moment and you have to rebuild, it's a sheer panic that. You feel that chill run down your whole body, oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a story. There was one animator on our team. Amy, remember Lou De La Rosa? Lou?
Yes.
So he's an amazing. He actually is a Disney pro. He animated Jafar and Scar from back in the day, and he was working on our film.
Yeah, Andreas Dejan,
right? No, his name is Lou De La Rosa.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. That's right. Because there was the animators, lead animators, and a bunch of people working on them.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
But he spent I think 6 to 8 hours on his shot, and he works really fast, and he almost finished it. And then, for some reason, the pipeline just deleted his work completely. So he lost all of that work, and then he was on our Slack. It's how does anybody work under these conditions? He was pretty angry, but I just felt so bad for him. I was oh man.
Yeah, the pipeline wasn't perfect, but given its ability to scale really nicely, but then I think it was definitely really hard on some of our teammates when they were working, and there was lag and stuff like that, or sometimes they would lose work. I think one of our modelers lost a week of work. But then, thankfully, the company was able to retrieve it later. But at the moment, I just felt so bad because I was oh my god, a week of work. Because, it just disappeared off of the database. And we're where did it go? That very familiar, terrible feeling.
At the very least, in the middle of, learning about all of this and working your way through through the troubleshooting and all of that and through all the hiccups in the road, you did say you learned a lot through the process. Everybody did, because it was a brand new process for a lot of people. And So what were some of the skills that you and your team learned from making the film that you have been able to apply to jobs now or future jobs that you'll be able to carry forward? What were some of the skills that you took from this experience?
Fighting imposter syndrome. Having confidence. I don't know. Well, Dixon, you should go.
Like specifically, or like.
What did you learn? I feel like I don't know. There's just so many things I learned on a technical level of like, animation, like what to look out for in every department.
Mm-hmm.
Like I learned so much about like modeling, texturing, layout, like lighting, animation, everything, like rendering. I also learned things about like producing, like what was a effective way to, create milestones, and how do you look out for teammates, and how long things usually take, or like how to create like a really good team dynamic, or like there was like personal growth too. But I don't know, for you, Dixon, what were your takeaways?
I mean, I think since I was going through this thing without much knowledge or experience, the whole thing was like a big lesson. So I would say the best thing for someone who wants to do this is to just make a short film, and then you'll learn so much, So I think that would be my message for like newcomers. Just make it, just do it.
Yeah, I think when it comes to like making a project at the scale, everyone's gonna have a different takeaway
For sure.
Because like, based off their own experience or things like that. And like for me, I thought that the creating Let's See as a final product would give me the ultimate happiness, but then I realized that it wasn't about the result, it was about the journey.
Yep, I was gonna say, it's not the destination, it's the journey.
yeah, I know, as cheesy as it sounds, it honestly was about their journey, like, and I, in some ways, didn't want it to end, and couldn't believe it when it ended. And so I think it was about the growth, and also being able to watch the growth of people. I think a lot of our goal for Let's Eat and for Animon Studios was to give people the opportunity to get jobs and that experience. And, some people who were working, in the service industry for a long time, and then, they worked with Animon Studios, and then they finally got that internship or that, like, entry-level job, and now they're, like, full-time, like, animators. Or, I think one of our close friends on the team, like, she was a modeler, and then she finished school, and then she got her internship at Pixar, and now she's a full-time artist at Pixar. And that was like wild, like to contribute to her career in that way. And I just really proud of everyone who got closer to their dreams.
Yeah.
And I think just to throw in, because I've never dealt with a 3D production at all, especially just dealing with the film festival thing, which I guess we'll get to in a second. But I feel like too, there's a lot of opportunities out there for people who maybe don't want to be the leader like from the get-go, but just kind of get their feet wet with someone else's whatever there is they're doing. And I guess that's kind of our perspective with coming in from a lot of fandom and aspects, is you kind of already have that passion built in for whatever it is. So sometimes that helps kind of with the final product, because everyone's excited about like My Little Pony or Harry Potter, or maybe Harry Potter's a bad example these days, but like Harry Potter or like like Disney or whatever have you, is like it gets a little trickier when you're trying to kickstart and stuff like that. But everyone is just there because they like X thing or they like this character or whatever, and sometimes it's a little bit less intimidating of a sell if a sell to be on the project, not like an animation cell. But if people already kind of have a base familiarity with the thing that they're working on, for instance, and I don't know, I think it's just kind of interesting as the internet, it becomes more of a thing, and how fandom and creative projects in general are kind of like overlapping in some perspectives. So there's my 2 cents.
That's really cool that you point that. I never really thought about it that way, that like fandom, it, like, you know, makes it easier because it's like the world's already created, right?
Yeah. So
up to like fans,
I don't know,
to like add on to it.
Yes. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but yeah, that's a lot of the perspective with the My Little Pony stuff is like, I don't know how, you know, much you guys looked up at just how that works, but there's a lot of people doing like you know, fan fictions and you know, specific, like maybe they draw a picture and there's people pretending to be the characters doing like fan voice acting, and it can be like a whole, obviously it's hard to reach like, you know, professional studio production levels, but you know, it's something, and people like, oh, I know that character because, you know, X, Y, or Z, or, you know, there's a different angle that you can probably add on than maybe in the traditional media. Like we're doing this this kind of like colored animatic for a thing coming up, and like I want to do or touch on something that wasn't in the original media but still could, you know, maybe they'll touch upon it later. So I think, and luckily, you know, companies in general are kind of having more of a laissez-faire kind of attitude, where they realize if they just cease and desist, unless you're CBS and Star Trek stuff, that's a whole different story from my understanding. But like, you know, Disney and Nick and all that stuff, they're pretty like, you know, open to those kind of things, because they realize if they just shut down fans who are just doing all this stuff non-profit, then it's going to make them look bad, and also it's free advertising for them, so why not let it exist unless it's like a threat to their IP, which it usually never is. So
that's so cool. I feel like in the way Let's Eat like could relate, because, you know, the way that I think the story was really important to me and Dixon, because it was our story about being Asian American, and I think a lot of our teammates really connected to that, it being about Asian Americans and telling stories of, you know, of a marginalized community. And so I think that in a way, like, I don't think it has that same oomph of like, you know, Harry Potter already like existing and people being excited about that. But I think when it came to telling Let's Eat, I think when people watched the animatic, I think a lot of them were very excited and moved by the story, because I don't think we see it enough. Even though there are stories of like, I think there's like Bao from Pixar, and then there's like One Small Step from Taiko Studios, and there's, I think, a few new ones coming out from like Disney, which is like really exciting.
Over the Moon.
Over the Moon, I was about to say.
Oh yeah,
I
Over the Moon.
I absolutely
oh my God, I have
cried.
so many. Oh really? I have so many bad thoughts about Over the Moon. I did not like it. But you know, to each their own. If you liked it, great.
I liked
it. Yay! I'm so glad.
I guess it's better than
like,
it not existing at all, right?
Yeah, I just like have some qualms where I'm like, oh, I wish it was done by an Asian director, but that's okay. Glenn Keane is amazing. Yeah, so I think like more the stories and like the authenticity, you can tell when something's authentic. Like I think if you've watched like Minari, that is a story that someone who wasn't Korean American could tell. So like, yeah, I think it's just really important to like keep telling these stories and like, you know, and keep moving forward. So
yeah, it's because I definitely, I remember watching Bao and I absolutely loved it. It was, and I'm like the visual allegory and everything. I'm like, it was so easily understood, especially when it comes from like a familial standpoint. That I'm like, when people are going, I don't get it. I'm like, how do you not get it? It's like it's basically a mother who doesn't want to separate from her son, and he's growing up and growing apart, and she basically says like, I don't want anybody else. I don't want you running off and leaving me, so I'm gonna eat you, like literally, so you can stay put. It's like I don't know why anybody wouldn't follow that, because it's a family viewpoint, and saying it's the view of a child growing up and the parent not wanting to see that, you know, all that change, you know? So it's, yeah.
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 Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go for it,
ahead.
Dixon.
I was going to say when Bao was announced, we read the log line, and the log line was almost exactly like our log line, and I was very concerned that that like we made the same story, but once it came out, I was like, oh, it's a completely different story. So I was like, okay, relieved, you know.
Yeah, we had a friend who was working at Pixar who when Bao was announced, she was like, don't worry, it's like not the same. And I was like, okay, cool. You better be telling the truth. We were so worried. And I think, it was really interesting when Bao did come out of how the most people who didn't believe in Let's See actually were fellow Asian Americans, which was really, really weird and surprising. But I guess in a way it made sense because there's like a huge scarcity mindset among like Asian Americans, where I don't think we feel like we have the right to have the space to tell our own stories. And so like I've had people come up to be like, oh, your story just sounds like Bao, why are you making it?
Oof.
And I was just like, you're Asian American, come on. Like, or like all of the Asian Americans would totally, they would laugh at Bao too. Like, I think I was definitely one of them who didn't take Bao, like, seriously. But then, like, I think I had to, like, look inside at my own internalized racism. And then, like, when I watched Bao again, like, I was, like, crying really hard. Because, like, I connected it so much and, like, looked passive, like, the comedy or like the shock factor when she she eats like her son. And so like that was like really interesting. I think that was definitely one of the struggles we faced as Let's See, like facing people rejecting Let's Eat from our fellow community. And that was a shock, but also really understanding because we also came from that same place where, we were rejected a lot from our culture and not really belonging anywhere. And so having to trick ourselves or be ashamed of ourselves in order to fit into a community that was not ours until now we're making ours, right? And like telling Let's Eat is like, I think really important to fighting and making space for ourselves to tell our stories.
Hang on, I'm gonna disrupt that totally by asking more questions, but I think that's it's a very nice sentiment. And I think that seems to always be, I mean, speaking as like a cis white girl kind of thing. From my understanding, I think that's always kind of a different, a hard thing to kind of approach is, you want people to be supportive because you're kind of from the same, same tribe, quote unquote. And when they're not, it just kind of you have to like kind of understand why and like look how they are approaching it and what like internal struggles that they're dealing with. Are they just kind of impersonating on your art? And it's sometimes you realize that people are kind of messy too. And it's not always about like what you're doing. It's a lot of times how other people see themselves, and it's kind of it can be messy sometimes. So
and sometimes how they're like processing and stuff, like which is why it's so important. Like when you're telling a story, is like keep your eye on the prize. Like remember why you're telling the story, and don't really have people say otherwise or take it over. And I think that was a really big lesson that you learned, Dixon, when you were trying to tell Let's See. It was like, I think you were having so many people comment of what it should be and what you can make it, but then I think we had to constantly remind ourselves, like, remember what Let's See is supposed to be about, and keep our eye on the prize, and we can listen to people with a grain of salt, so that we can make it into a film that really will connect to everyone, but still staying true to ourselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was one version of the film that where I kind of took all the feedback that I got and I made all the changes, and I thought, I fixed it. It's gonna be better. And then we screened it, and then it was horrible, even worse than the previous iteration. So that's when we just scrapped everything and said, I'm gonna write it again, but it's just gonna be just what I want to see, and then that's
Exactly.
the version that kind of worked out in the end. So that's a good lesson there.
I think it also comes down to, like, you can't please everyone. So do the best
Right,
you can with
yeah.
the story that you want to tell. Because when it, like you said, when you can tell it comes from a genuine, real place, like it comes from passion, it comes from a story you want to tell, then the right people will go to it, you know? And you don't have to force somebody to like it. They will gravitate to it because they can feel it. They can feel something real, you know? So
Yeah, the authenticity.
Yeah.
Like it's coming, with so much heart and soul. They can really tell.
Yeah, and I think before I divert a little bit, I think there's also a little bit in just how competitive the animation industry can be sometimes, and sometimes people put that kind of negative energy as like, oh, well, they're doing something. What am I doing? I'm not doing anything. I'm not getting farther in my career, yada yada yada. So I think there's a lot of, maybe they're not where they're ready to be to get that job or get that internship or even like, physically location wise, and then they put that pain on like, well, they're doing something. They're, so I'm gonna crap on their thing because it will make me feel better about myself. So there's that side of it too, which is unfortunate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, I didn't think about that, but yeah, I think you're right.
Lots of therapy, essentially. Being a YouTuber can be
Self-care.
very hard sometimes.
You got this.
Yeah, I appreciate person I just met today. On another note, like, so how does even the film festival route work? Is it just like submitting your piece, like your work in progress piece to different, sites? Is there like a master site for finding like every film festival that ever existed? Can you submit work in progresses to film festivals, like, or it depends on the specific one? Sorry, that's a lot of questions, but essentially, like, how does the film festival circuit work from your experience?
Yeah, so we also had no idea what to do at the film festival, but thankfully we had mentors. Mentors are great. Get one that will hopefully actually support you and not tell you that you're like bad. I recently got a question from someone. They're like, my mentor said that like I'm not cut out for the animation industry after 3 years, and I was just like, get a new mentor because that's not nice. But anyways, I diverge. So film festivals. I think one is Film Freeway. Every film festival is on that. It's easy to you can apply to all the film festivals through that. I don't think there's any film festival out there that is on Film Freeway, and if they're not, they're behind the times. So filmfreeway.com is the way to go. In terms of applying to film festivals, there is, because there's like thousands of them. And, there are ones that will reach out to you and they're like, hey, like for 50% off, like, come apply for us, you'll get a discount. But like what you realize is that a lot of film festivals do that, and reach out to you because they're trying to make a quick buck. And so when you're applying to film festivals, you can be strategic about it because like, say for example, like, for Let's Eat, we wanted to submit to animation film festivals. We wanted to go to Asian American film festivals, and that was pretty much it. But like, if you were creating like an LGBT one, right, or like a black like movie, or like Asian, like you can submit to like black like film festivals, or like LGBT film festivals, or woman focused like film festivals, or trans, so like. There are film festivals that would pertain to your film, and things like that. And you can also tell like for a film festival that they're more mainstream, and so they're like the more abstract. Like what's that Glass Animation Film Festival in Berkeley? Like they're very
You mean like
explorative,
avant-garde style?
Yeah, avant-garde style, like animation. Yeah. So like they were very much of that theme, and like Let's Eat was not like Let's Eat was very like Disney, Pixar, like easy to like consume animation, not like the ones that like make you feel like you're like on LSD or something. So like that's a strategy you can approach to, you know, film festivals, because like applying to film festivals is expensive. Like it can cost from free to $50 a pop. And you know, and so like let's say if you apply to 30 film festivals and each of them costs $50, that's $1,500 right there, and you're not guaranteed to get in. So it's a lot of money. And also like, well, we didn't have to worry about this because of COVID, but there's also travel too. So being able to travel to every film festival to participate in that you get into is also a concern. So like thinking about which ones you actually want to participate in or like go to, and which ones you're just like, I just want to show my film there, blah, that's it. So in terms of submitting your film early, some film festivals will accept that. Because I think I don't know how to speak for live action, but for animation films, I think some film festivals know it takes a long time. Like you're like in the middle of rendering or something, or like you're putting in the final like compositing like touches and or whatever. And so if you just like email the film festival and things like that, I think will be okay with it. But most of the time you need a final product. And the film festival will say like, you know, you can submit any film that was made before 2020 of December. And so that's usually how you go about, you know, so like you could be applying in 2022 and then you could still put in a film that you made in 2020 because it meets that rule. I think especially for animation, that would make a lot of sense because animation takes a really long time.
Right.
But live action, I don't know how that goes. So,
right.
Yeah.
But those film festivals that do take it early, you kind of have to be almost done though. Like you probably should be around 80-90% done. I don't think they'll take.
No, I would say like 98% done.
Or even
because
more so,
like 90 is like you still got like 6 months
right.
left. Like, but like you have to be like 99% done. Like you're just putting in the final touches.
They won't take anything like 50, 60, or 70% done. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think one film festival will say like your story had to be locked. Like your shots had to be locked in order to apply.
So, follow-ups. So do all film festivals cost money to... I mean, I guess that's how they do it, right? And then the other one is like, I guess you kind of alluded to this.
Actually, no.
Really?
Most animation film festivals are free.
That's nice.
But they're in Europe.
There you go. There's
I
your
don't
catch.
know, for some reason, like there's like no animation film festival in the United States. They're mostly in Europe.
You got duped.
Yeah, you got dupes. Yeah, but they're free, you know. But they're in Europe, so like. But I think there are a few here. But I think the competition's also very, very up there. So yeah.
And then I guess the other one. So I guess the average is like around $50. I guess depending.
Yeah, like 20 to I think some of them could be 80 even. But like, so the key is doing early access. So, like, submitting your film festival early. There's, like, early birds, then there's regular, and then there's late. But the earlier you submit your film to a film festival, right, the sooner it's going to be viewed, and the more likely it's going to be selected. So, like, if you can't, like, you know, what I would do, like, if you're in a production that's, like, you know, 2 years, start looking at film festivals a year out, or a year and a half, to just see which film festivals are showing, because they kind of show throughout the whole year. I think the summertime is the most popular, or like spring, summer. And so you should and then so the application happens in the fall. So you have to kind of find the timing of when to apply to film festivals and when to wrap your production so that you can make it in time to apply for those fall submissions. And then you can make it into the spring.
Okay. And then I guess last question on that, like, so again, you kind of alluded to it, but like, So sometimes you can just submit your film and not attend the actual event and just hope I guess you get an email that if it got a prize or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, we got a prize, and I don't think I knew until one of my teammates pointed out to me. They're like, "Hey, you got an award." I was like, "What?" I was like, "That's cool." Yeah, I don't think I knew about. We got like the jury award at the Palm Springs Animation International Film Festival or something, right, Dixon?
Yeah.
And I didn't know about it until, I don't know, like a week later.
I think you were traveling, maybe.
But, yeah, maybe I was traveling.
But this year was really weird because of the pandemic. So, I mean, I'm sure if it wasn't the case, I think Amy and I would like go around to actually visit or attend these festivals. But most of them didn't have any events. They're mostly like on demand, where they sell tickets and then people get to watch it. But then there's no like event that central event. So. It was a weird year, so we
yeah. I think they had virtual rooms to like go and hang out and stuff.
Oh right, yeah, that's right.
But I didn't have the energy to go. I was just
it's
like
not the same, yeah.
Yeah.
I almost imagined like, because I remember going to like a film festival screening. It was for like, I think it was for like student films kind of thing. Like film outside the frame. That's what I remember going 2 years ago. And I just remember being put in the overflow room. And now I'm just imagining going to a film festival and like if there's like a virtual overflow room. Yeah. I'm like, you can't do that. Virtual room should have more space because it's virtual.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, but definitely film festivals. I think this year, because they had to make a buck. So they were, selling tickets and figure out the bigger way. And I think probably a big question that they're asking themselves this year too was like exclusivity. Like, how do you work with that when you're doing on-demand stuff online and people couldn't watch from their computer and record or whatever. So I think that was a huge fear with a lot of filmmakers, for sure. But I think for me, Dixon, I don't know if we cared too much, except maybe at the beginning, like really early on. But as the year went by, I think we got more relaxed. They were like, "Yeah, whatever, just show on whatever you want." Like, we just want to release it, So.
Okay. I'm out of questions.
I was gonna say though, I guess ultimately now after you've completed the film, you had it going through film festivals and you're soon ready to debut it online. Like, what has been your, maybe it could be one or multiple, what were some of your biggest takeaways from making an independent animated short film for the first time? As a bigger team,
That's a loaded question. Yeah, Dixon, you should totally go first.
Sure. Well, for me, I think obviously I was speaking earlier on this, the amount of experience that you will gain from making a short film like this, I think it's worth it. And then the other thing too is like, if you make a short film, you'll expand your network. So like if you want to expand your network, just make a short film. And like for instance, like now I know 152 people, that's in this industry, and that's pretty awesome to know that many people in a short amount of time. So that's what I would say. Experience and just the network was awesome, and the experience was really satisfying too.
Yeah, like you recently got an opportunity to interview like a DreamWorks because of Let's Eat.
Yeah, and that wouldn't happen if I didn't make this film. So
yeah, and I don't think I could have gotten my opportunity at Tonka House because of Let's Eat.
Yeah, and there's multiple people on the team that have gone on to pretty awesome jobs because of their experience too. So
that's fantastic.
Cool.
Yeah, that was really neat. I feel like I say this over and over again. I think Let's Eat, in this creating an indie animated volunteer, production, like put us through everything. And so I feel like the largest takeaway was that if like you have the resources and like the grit to like start making your own short film, do it. And I think with Let's Eat, we got so lucky on so many things. Like, I think Let's Eat could have easily have failed if certain things didn't happen. We were just, like, really lucky with, like, the people that worked on our team and with the instances that happened. Like, even the acquisition of that company we were working with, like, that actually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, too. Like, a huge blessing. Like, we got, $75,000 because of that acquisition. Wow. So, and, like, we were able to, like, do a lot of experience our production in a very, very different way. And that was, like, really, really neat. But, like, when you start your production, I think one really big thing is, like, to not be afraid of failure. Because I think there's a percentage out there saying, like, 70% of short films, especially animation, will fail.
Or won't finish,
with
yeah.
each... Huh?
Oh, sorry. I think it's won't finish or something. Oh,
won't finish, yeah, right. Yeah, they won't finish. And I think, like, that may be true, but with every attempt, you learn something really valuable.
Right.
And so as creators, the best thing to do is, like, just to keep trying and learning. And with everything you learn, like, every time you do it, you'll learn something. And so I think with Let's Eat, we got really lucky that we were able to finish with such a great product. But yeah, there's so many takeaways, but I don't know. Enjoy it. Enjoy the process. Enjoy creating bonds with teammates, because at the end of the day, an animation production is a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you might as well make it a very enjoyable trip with the people that you're working with and making lifelong friends.
Yeah. I guess in the end, that's really the kind of more or less the advice that you have for anybody else who wants to be able to do what you guys do and want to make their own films, is basically following those guidelines and just, again, coming with experience, whether the film gets finished or not. There's a lot that you can pull from that experience anyway. And, it's, and there's, I guess you could say there's a lot that is learned and a lot of maturity in the process as well.
Which kind of reminds me of this thing, I think, that KP said, I think earlier, about, like, how when people, like, ask you to work on projects, they, they're trying to pull the rug on you or take advantage of you. But then I think, everyone does have, like, has other people's best interest in mind. And so when you're working, or if you're leading, or even if you're being a part, if you're not leading, you're just being a part of it, like, I think to have that faith that people have best interest is good. But also, like, in order to create, like, a really good team dynamic is to have the best interest of each other. And so I think you hear, like, a lot of horror stories of, like, volunteer projects. Like, I think one of our teammates was, like, telling us how she was on another project and someone was saying, like, you had to put in, like, 18 hours a week, and she didn't meet those 18 hours. And so, like, the producer came, like, asked her to, like, come to his house and, like, so he could just, like, watch her work to make sure that she could, like, make up her hours. And I was just like, no, absolutely not. We are not doing that. We're going to do the opposite thing, because we're humans and life happens, and this is a volunteer project, and there's no way that it's, like, unheard of to, like, control people, I think, that way, in that lifestyle, unless, like, they agree to those expectations. But that's just, like, I think there's a boundary where, like, you're like, oh my gosh, you can't control people like that.
Yeah.
That's absurd.
Something of that I learned is that people are either going to do it or they're not going to do it. And, you can, like, I mean, as you guys probably know this, but you got to just kind of put people, like, in a metaphorical box. Like, be nice about it, but be like, so when, you still have to have deadlines, you still have to kind of have a plan, just generally. And when the plan falls through and people aren't communicating, that's when there's a problem. But, like, if people are just falling behind and you can tell, like, there's nothing really, you can try to work it out with them, and they either, like, at the end of the day, they can balance it with their life, or they can. And, for the people who can't, there's nothing, they're not bad people, but, maybe they're just not ready, or, they're, they have something going on that's more serious that you might not know about. There's a lot of different factors going on. But, you know, that's kind of the thing, you know, with especially when you're doing everything like via the internet and stuff like that, you kind of have to trust people at their word, and you know, communication, like it's better to know about a problem than someone just not saying anything, and then the problem might get worse. So
yeah, totally. I think with Let's Eat, you're, you know, adding people who were graduates, recent graduates, or students. And so, like, I think Dixon and I knew at the beginning that we would be working with people who didn't know how to communicate. So in the beginning, we made it very clear that we would be teaching them how to communicate. And that was, like, part of the process of, like, being part of Let's Eat. So, and, like, you know, asking them, like, would they be willing to learn? You know, and, like, you know, we would, like, I think I would just, like, spell it out for them, be like, you know, you're going to learn how to communicate via Slack and how to communicate with your production coordinator, and then how to, you know, meet these deadlines and communicate when you can't meet these deadlines. And so then I would teach my production coordinators of how to communicate that to the teammates and, like, look out for them. And we would have, like, meetings with them being like, hey, like, I know you said you were busy. Next time, just make sure that you let us know and give us a week. And then some teammates actually really did improve with communicating. They're like, hey, my school's really crazy, it's wild, like, I just need, like, another, like, 2 weeks and things like that. And then, like, you know, these people were also learning what they could actually handle and what they couldn't.
Right.
And so I think on our management side, we also understood that too, that these people were still trying to, like, you know, dial in what they could handle and what they couldn't handle, because I don't know, they're, like, in their 20s or, like, you know, younger, right?
They always want to they always want to try to impress people, but then that might not be
they always want to say yes, right? And I'm like, you know, no, like, this is a time to say no, like, or, like, things like that. And there was just like really good growth opportunities, I think, for a lot of teammates and stuff like that. And so yeah, I think the people that I noticed that I was always impressed by were the ones who could tell me no and actually explain and communicate. So, like, that was really great.
Yeah. I think, I guess our general last question, unless Lauren, you want to throw something in. So, now that, I remember the program, the site, but the program or the site that you talked about kind of went down. So from your experience, do you think people would go if they want to find people for their short films, and or where do you think people should go if they're not the ones running the short films, but they just want to volunteer or they want to kind of get that experience?
I hear Discord is a really great place to do it, actually. Like, for like women in animation, this is a Discord, I think, for that. And there's also, like, Rise Up Animation, I think, has a Discord too. Like, there's a lot of Discord channels out there. Like, I think there's a lot, like, VR and things like that. So I think it's a matter of finding those communities and, like, and chatting up with them. So.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know we had a Discord group.
I didn't,
but
know
I guess
either.
everyone's
like,
getting a Discord group.
Now I gotta get in there. I'm a member. I'm like, where am I?
I'm a member too. Yeah. That's one way. I would say conventions, but, like, where's that happening? So, like, I think
I guess
happened,
whenever
right?
they start, Lauren's gonna have to be the woman on the field, being like, "Hey, have you heard about this thing? Give me your firstborn child."
Yes, like, please work for me.
We can work to make a thing. All right. I am out of questions. Lauren,
I'm
out of questions?
Yeah, we're at the end. I mean, we already got that. We usually like to end on, like, what advice you have for people, and we pretty much got that. So.
We covered that like 5 times.
Yeah. So.
Well, thank you guys for coming. This was a really good episode. So I appreciate your guys' time. And when Let's Eat is released, where can people find it on the internet?
Because we will be sharing it.
Oh, thank you. That really means a lot. YouTube. It's just going to be on YouTube. We just want to share it with our loved ones. So.
And then how soon are you planning on releasing it?
I believe it's September 26th.
Perfect. Okay. So yeah, that's because I think with this episode we'll have it ready in a week, about a week, right? So it's like, so it'll still be before the film drops, and so that way people will know about it, and then we'll be able to plug. So there you go.
Woohoo!
Awesome.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for coming on.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad we were able to do this, and thank you to Rachel and my Rachel from high school, Rachel Jelinek, not KP Rachel, but yes, to KP Rachel for being a fantastic co-host as always.
Yes. Thank you both so much. It was really fun.
It's like the
Thank
two
you.
Rachels. Thank you. And again, I'm like, I was able to see it in advance, so I'm really excited for the rest of the world to see it who has not seen it yet, and for people who have seen it, they get to see it again. So, I'm very excited for you guys, and thank you so much again for joining us today.
No problem. Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
And I guess KP, you want to do the sign-off spiel?
Yeah. All right. So if you're new to the podcast, we release when we feel like it, usually twice a month at this point. We'll probably start picking up because there's more things to talk about in general, so me and Lauren can talk about some things. But please remember, as always, turn your notifications on and subscribe to the main channel. It's getting a little better. We released the Morty video, and that's doing okay, which makes me sad a little bit on the inside, but I kind of figured a meme video would be fine, or do okay-ish, and then the podcast is mostly on YouTube. That's where people consume it too, so subscribe there if you'd like to. If not, we're on all the podcast providers if you'd rather listen to it somewhere else.
Like Apple Podcasts, all
know.
that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So, that way you actually know when episodes come on, imagine that. So probably every other Wednesday at this current time, but there's plenty of backlog if you're new to the podcast.
Yeah, it's funny because actually I was going to say
pod out.
I was going to say, because we mentioned earlier, Dragon Prince was mentioned earlier, so you could go back and listen to the episode with Giancarlo Volpe, who did Avatar and also did Dragon Prince. So there you go. There's a there's a connection there.
There you go. The best one of the he's a cool guy.
A cool guy.
I'm hoping to get him back eventually. But
so thank you again for everyone for tuning in, and we will be seeing you all next time.
Metaphorically seeing you. We won't be actually spying on you. That's
You'll be hearing us. You'll be hearing from us. Said with affection. Good night, everybody.
Right.
Thank you so much for listening to Animation Kimmunication on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider. We are really hoping this show makes a difference in how people view animation and media, as well as giving and providing advice for people all over the world who like or want to join the animation or media industry. If you liked what you heard, please remember to subscribe and rate those 5 stars, as well as tell your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our main YouTube channel, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, and turn those notifications on. My name is Scribbler, and you have been listening to Animation Kimmunication.